If you are smart enough to build something powerful, you are also smart enough to destroy lives with it. And sometimes the line between those two things is just one unpaid medical bill. You grow up in a place where talent is cheap, but survival is expensive. Your mother works until her hands crack. Your father is gone so early he feels more like a rumor than a person. The one thing he leaves behind is an old chemistry book, dusty, half torn, forgotten on a shelf. Most kids would use it to stop a table from shaking. You read it like it is a treasure map. By the time you reach university, chemistry is the only thing that ever made sense. Molecules make sense. Reactions make sense. People do not. You study hard, get the grades, win the scholarship, finish near the top, and tell yourself this is it. This is the part where life finally stops punching down. It does not. You send applications everywhere: drug companies, research labs, private firms. You get interviews. You wear the same clean shirt every time. You answer well, you shake hands. Then nothing. No calls, no offers, no door opens. It is like the degree got you close enough to see the party, but not close enough to get inside. So you go back home with a resume no one reads and a diploma that cost more than your family has ever had in one room. Then one day, while you are stacking boxes in a hardware store, a man comes in and asks a question that changes everything. He does not ask what aisle the paint is in. He asks if you are the chemistry graduate. That is when the real interview starts. At first, you say no. Of course you do. Only a fool says yes that fast. In your town, everybody knows what a cash job for a chemist means when the employer has no office, no website, and no paperwork. You tell yourself you are still one of the good ones, still clean, still outside that world. Then your mother keeps coughing, not the normal kind, not the kind you ignore. The clinic wants tests. The tests cost months of your pay. Treatment costs more money than you can picture without feeling sick. Suddenly, morality feels like a luxury item. Nice to have, impossible to afford. So when the man returns, you do not say yes. You say, I want to meet him first. They take you out past the town, past the last decent road, to a ranch so calm it almost feels fake. There's no shouting, no movie style chaos, no dramatic music. Just a man sitting in the shade with a cold drink in his hand, reading your university transcript like he's hiring for a lab job. He asks about your grades. He asks what you know about organic chemistry. He asks how you would improve an unstable process. And then, in the calmest voice imaginable, he tells you what the product is: methamphetamine, not street corner junk, not backyard nonsense. He wants cleaner product, more stable product, more predictable product. He does not want a cook. He wants a chemist, someone who understands why things work, not just how to copy steps. Then he names the salary. In that moment, the number is louder than the word meth. You tell yourself it is temporary. You tell yourself it is just for the test, just for the treatment, just until things calm down. That is how people walk into traps. Not running, not screaming, just making one temporary choice. When you see the lab for the first time, it looks less like a criminal empire and more like a bad school project with a death wish. Cheap containers, dirty tools, bad airflow, wrong measurements, men doing dangerous work with the confidence of people who do not understand what can go wrong. And that is the moment the strangest thing happens. You stop being scared. You start being offended because now you are not looking at crime. You are looking at bad chemistry. So you do what you were trained to do. You do not touch anything at first. You inspect, you test, you check contamination, you map the room, you figure out what is broken, what is missing, and what has to change. You write down the equipment you need: proper glassware, better measuring tools, real ventilation, better controls. The list gets approved faster than any university request ever did. That is when it hits you. The system that ignored your talent has a rival system that rewards it instantly. That is a dangerous feeling. Maybe the most dangerous feeling in the world. Being seen. You rebuild everything. You bring order to chaos. You turn a filthy operation into something that runs with discipline, cleaner workflow, better control, tighter standards, less waste, more consistency. Soon the product is no longer random. It becomes reliable. And reliability is where the real money lives. That is the dark joke at the center of this whole story. You are not inventing evil. You are just making it run on time. Within months, one lab becomes several. You train assistants. Some of them barely understand the science, but they can follow rules. And rules are enough when someone like you designs the system. You teach them the same way good teachers taught you. Be exact. Do not guess. Small mistakes become big disasters. The men above you love this, not because they admire science, because science in the wrong hands prints money. Soon you are not just fixing a lab. You are running quality control across an entire operation. You travel between sites, you test samples, you reject bad work, you reward the crews that meet the standard, you build a system with pressure, incentives, and fear. A real business, just with a product that destroys the people buying it. The money starts solving problems at home. Your mother gets treatment, the bills get paid, the roof gets fixed, there is food in the kitchen. For the first time in years, life feels lighter. That is what makes the lie so powerful. Because the money really does help. Your mother asks where it comes from. You tell her you found chemistry work in another city. She believes you because the truth would crush her, and because parents will hold on to a good lie if it lets them sleep at night. She tells you she is proud. That word lands like a brick. You sit there at dinner, hearing your mother say she is proud of the son who saves her, while knowing the same hands that paid for her medicine are poisoning strangers by the thousands. That is when the split begins. Outside, you act like a rising professional. Inside, you know exactly what you have become. Then the men above you decide you should understand the bigger machine, not just the lab, the whole chain. You are shown how product moves, how it is packed, how it travels, how one quiet room in one hidden place connects to cities far away. That is when the scale becomes real. What felt local suddenly looks massive. Your work is no longer a secret job. It is one link in a network so large it makes your salary feel like a joke. You realize you are not rich, you are useful, and useful people in that world are paid just enough to stay loyal and reminded just enough to stay afraid. When you ask for more money, you get it. But it comes with a story about the last smart man who thought he deserved too much. In this business, warnings do not sound like warnings. They sound like lunch conversation. Calm voice, casual face, terrible message. Then the market changes. The old supply route gets tighter. The easy ingredients dry up. Pressure comes down from above. Find another way. Adapt. Fix it. Keep product moving. And this part matters because it shows why operations like this do not survive on violence alone. Violence scares people. Chemistry keeps the business alive. You adjust. You redesign. You shift methods. You troubleshoot. But now the science gets harder, the risk gets bigger, and the gap between what looks good on paper and what works in the real world gets dangerous. You can make something that tests clean and still fails where it matters. You can hit a number and still disappoint the market, in other words, even in a criminal empire. Bad product is bad business. That detail changes the whole story. Because now, this is not just about drugs. It is about systems, pressure, incentives, and the cold logic of scale. By now, they call you a nickname, something that sounds respectful, something almost flattering. But nicknames in places like this are traps too. A nickname That means you are no longer just an employee. You are part of the architecture. Then one day, you see the other side of your own work, not in a ledger, not in a truck, in a human face, a wrong turn through a rough neighborhood, people folded into sidewalks, eyes empty, skin damaged, bodies twitching like the wiring got crossed somewhere, lives stripped down to raw nerves and hunger. And there it is, the product, not as chemistry, not as profit, but as consequence. You can lie to yourself in a lab. You can call it process, output, quality, numbers. But it is harder to lie when the result is sitting on a curb, scratching itself bloody under a broken streetlight. That image does not leave. And once it is in your head, every batch feels different. Still, the machine keeps moving. It always does. More labs, more stuff, more pressure, more output. You memorize everything because keeping records is dangerous. Locations, ratios, schedules, suppliers. You become the living memory of the operation. That makes you important. It also makes you a target with legs. Then the man who trusted your brain disappears from the board, arrested, and power shifts to someone worse. This new boss does not care about quality. He cares about volume, fast volume, cheap volume. Stretch the product, lower the standard, move more, make more. Shut up. You explain why that is bad business. He hears disrespect. That is the rule in violent systems. Facts lose every fight against ego. So the product gets worse. Buyers notice. Trust slips. People vanish. Lab leads disappear. Replacements show up with no skill, no care, no patience. Men who treat chemistry like kitchen work and danger like a rumor. Now you are not just building a machine. You are standing inside one that is shaking apart. An assistant you trained years earlier comes to you scared, almost whispering. He says people connected to the old boss are being cleaned out, not fired, removed. He says your name came up. Not in a meeting about science, in a meeting about problems. That is when survival becomes the only topic left. Because now you know something terrible. The things that made you valuable is the same thing that can get you killed. You know too much. Then comes the message. Not from the cartel, from the other side. Law enforcement reaches out through a quiet channel. They know who you are. They know what you do. They know where your value sits. And they offered the one thing this world never offered you before. A way out. Not a clean one, not a heroic one, but a way. Give them the locations, the routes, the patterns, the names. Help them cut the machine apart from the inside. In return, you and your mother disappear into a new life. This is the real breaking point of the story. Not when you first say yes, not when the money arrives, not even when you see the damage. It is here. Because now every day becomes a double life. You keep the labs running while feeding the map to the people preparing to destroy them. You are both engineer and betrayal, builder and wrecking ball. The same brain that made the system stronger is now pulling bolts from its foundation. Then, one morning before sunrise, it all snaps. Multiple raids, multiple sites, arrests, cash, product, headlines by noon. The people who used to speak softly into secure phones are now face down in dirt or handcuffed under camera lights. The empire does not fall in one cinematic explosion. It falls the way most systems do. Pressure, weakness, timing, one bad shift, and then suddenly everyone acts shocked that it was fragile. You cross the border under protection. New town, new name, new work. And here's the part that hurts more than the raids. Your new job is ordinary. Water testing, basic lab work, quiet days, safe chemicals, clean rules, same instruments, different purpose. The tools are familiar. The stakes are not. After everything, your life becomes small enough to fit inside a rented apartment and a weekly routine. That should feel like freedom. Sometimes it does. Sometimes it feels like punishment with softer lighting. Your mother lives nearby under a different name. You visit. She cooks. She asks about work. You tell her it matters. This time, at least that part is true. But not everyone gets out. One day, you read a short article about bodies found near an abandoned site. No names, just numbers. That is how the world reports the dead, when the dead were never important to the world in the first place. But one of those numbers has a face, a young assistant, a kid who trusted you, a kid who asked questions because he thought you had answers. You do not. That is the final cruelty of this kind of story. Survival is not the same thing as peace. So at night, you sit with a notebook and draw molecules, harmless ones, familiar shapes that do not ruin families or empty streets. You draw them because chemistry was never the villain. It was just a language. The same language can clean water, heal people, or poison a city. It all depends on who is speaking and why. And that is the thing nobody says loud enough. Empires like this do not run on guns first. Guns make noise. Chemistry makes money. Systems like this are built by quiet people with useful skills, backed into corners where the wrong door opens faster than the right one. The men with rifles get the headlines. The chemist gets the guild. And somewhere tonight, undergraduate with real talent and no real options is staring at a paycheck that does not cover the month, while somebody watches from the other end of the aisle and thinks that one might work.